Hello and welcome to Transmission. I'm Reid, and tonight I'm joined by Sally Goldner, who I kind of feel as though needs probably no introduction. So Sally, welcome to the show.
Thank you, yeah. Hashtag Auntie Sally, at Sal Gold said so for the tweeters, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, Sally, been involved quite heavily within the queer community, I suppose, for a number of years. How long do you think you've been involved?
I came out in 1995 and got more involved in the wider or rainbowish community in about 98. So at the time of recording, it is 16 years. I'm a teen, yeah, that's about right, said the accountant, 16 years. So yeah, it's been a long time. I'm a teenager, I'm legal and that sort of thing. And It's been a really interesting journey to look at it change over that time too.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of involvement with the community, you've done quite a lot of sort of advocacy work and that's sort of been something that you've been involved with, you know, for 16 years.
Yeah.
What exactly sort of inspired you to do so much stuff?
I think at the time I didn't know it. I was following my inner heart and soul and, you know, didn't know it. And it didn't actually really become clear until 2008-9. To be really diverse, I actually got an astrological reading that said I was born under a planet that wanted to talk about these topics. But I was just following my heart, really. Even if I didn't know that was my calling, I still thought, oh, maybe I'll just do this for a few years and then do a 9-to-5 job. But now my 9-to-5 job, which actually is paying as well, is advocacy. And I'm, you know, very much coming from my heart, which is a good place to be. Yeah.
So what sort of roles, I suppose, have you taken throughout over the years in terms of your advocacy?
It's been a few things. Media spokesperson, which is the original title I had with Transgender Victoria, and my role still encompasses that, which is obviously important to get an accurate viewpoint out about trans people. And I think that's been, you know, interesting over the years. The outright prejudice that we faced, say, 16 or 19 years ago, has shifted a lot. And now I think people know that they've got a fair idea, by and large, of what I call the 101, that we're just people who happen to have a gender identity different to what society expects given our body at birth, whatever. And now a lot more of it's saying, well, what are the policy implications for that? So it shifted from a very almost reactive position now to a much more proactive position. And the other part that came off that was doing training sessions and education. In the last 2 years, we've probably done more training than in the previous 10. And we're getting out to all sorts of places, corporates, service providers, housing, and in particular aged care, which is great as well, thanks to the federally funded project by the LGBTI Health Alliance. And that is just awesome that people will be able to assist people in aged care at their retirement. But it's all levels, uni talks, youth, you know, Melbourne, Geelong, Wodonga, which is fantastic and increases connectedness too.
So you found that there has been that shift between, because it seemed as though that there wasn't sort of a lot of visibility maybe 10 years ago, and so with the visibility has come that need for organisations and groups to get the education?
Definitely. I think people are very much aware now that there's things that they know that they don't know, whereas even, say, 2 years ago, they didn't know that they didn't know. And I can't, let's say, prove it, but I think it was campaigns like No to Homophobia and the Beyond Blue Left Hand campaign that made people realise, oh, to say things, for example, like, that's so gay, or, you know, you're behaving like a girl, or whatever it was, made people realise, oh, we can't do that in a workplace. But they wanted to know, how do we do it right? And so to go into a workplace and talk about how to make forms inclusive or use the right pronouns or whatever it is and explain the nuances of the law, all those sorts of things is, you know, turning out to be really worthwhile, and they become more empowered allies as well.
Yeah, and so I know that a lot of your work has been in terms of, I suppose, the gender spectrum of the queer community, but you've also done some stuff in terms of with Bisexual Alliance.
That's it, Bisexual Alliance Victoria, and I think that's probably the next area, right? The evidence we have from reports such as Private Lives 2 tells us that bisexual health is unfortunately worse than gay and lesbian, and then binary trans, probably on a par with non-binary. And I think the next stage of development is what I call hashtag binary busting for bisexual, for non-binary trans, maybe for polyamorous as well. And I still feel, unfortunately, there is biphobia about. For example, a US college survey that found 15% of US college students still don't even think bisexuals exist. So I think that's probably, you know, the next level to crack, so to speak. And I think biased as I am, I think trans and bi who go beyond binary so much can really work together on this.
And I suppose that is a problem that I know in terms of the invisibility of bisexuality, because people will assume that if you're in a relationship with a male, then you're gay, or if you're in a relationship, you know, and so it is sort of that level of invisibility.
Well, yeah, people look at you in the relationship you're in at the time and call it either gay, lesbian or heterosexual, rather than looking over a lifetime where someone could be bisexual, pansexual. And for trans people, we can be any sexual orientation, heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bi, pan, asexual, which seems to be gaining in sort of understanding as well, although still a way to go, because we're people like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. We can have a sexual orientation like anyone else, and we can just be people in terms of our occupation, our relationships, whether we want cats and or dogs in the backyard like anyone else, which is cool too.
Yeah. I suppose, so 16 years of advocacy work, what keeps you going?
It's about heart, it's about connectedness to the right energy sources, because there are down moments. I was recently at a conference and it was a very small gathering, and I had to face some very transphobic remarks from some older lesbians, and that is difficult to deal with. But I have friends and supports, and I have managed to do my own sort of personal development over the years, which has been critical to me. And to borrow the title of the book by Anthony Van Brown, the fabulous person who's reconciling Christianity and GLBTism, or at least GLBdom, A Life of Unlearning. I've tried to unlearn the things that don't fit this soul and blow the fog away and get closer to the full person I am. And not just in terms of gender identity, sexual orientation, but all the things that I like, such as wearing crazy cat hoods and being a fan of World Wrestling Entertainment. Oh God, I've outed myself again. And all that sort of thing. I'm a person, who is all those attributes and many more. And I feel very much in a combination of peace and power now at the same time. And that's what's kept me going, and now I have a whole heap of good supports as well.
Well, that's fantastic. That's almost, I suppose, a message to try and get those supports and things. If you know, I suppose for anybody.
Well, totally. I think that I think that we have the proverbial distance to travel, and in varying degrees for again gay and lesbian, trans, bi and intersex, and breaking it down further. But I think usually there's a way to find one foot in the door now, with obviously internet and social media have been a major part, I think, in the improvement for trans, and will be for bi as well. And whereas 10 years ago they weren't there, of course. Yeah. And I think it just can be that one good connection, and then it might not be exactly the right one, but someone will say, oh yeah, but I know so-and-so who knows so-and-so, or whatever it is. And it's just, getting a grip on one link on the chain can make the difference. And of course, with search engines, I think it can be found. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I suppose we could talk, and it's time flies when having fun.
Yeah.
So we're unfortunately out of time, but thank you so much for coming on and just giving a little bit about sort of who you are. So big thank you to Sally Goldner. You've been watching Transmission.